Okay, so welcome everyone to the midterm review for CS46A. This is going to be the second virtual SI session. That means you can also watch the first one on Piazza. There should be a post there somewhere, and you can always watch the old video too, in case if today was not enough. Did you want to add anything in?
No.
Could you speak a little louder? I'm not sure if your mic is picking you up.
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, if anyone has trouble hearing Yen, just say so in the chat, and we'll address it right away. But we're just gonna go through with this. Okay. So today we're gonna be going over an example class, object tracing, and tips and tricks for the exam, and then the last bit would be Q&A. So let me just add that there actually. And then the last bit is Q&A. Okay, so I guess we could just start off with the SodaCan class. So in previous exams, I mean, just about in every single midterm I've seen, our professor likes to make us write a class, and it doesn't have to be super abstract and long. A lot of the times it's pretty straightforward. She tells you exactly what she wants, and then it's just a matter of speed, right? Like how fast you can write it. So okay, so let's just get down to it. Okay, so from here, I can see that the question is asking, well, okay, let me just delete that. So the question is asking to contain these following instance variables. It'll also contain a constructor, and it'll contain a bunch of methods here. Normally, you don't have to write a lot of it from scratch on the midterm. A lot of it is done ahead of you, and then you just have to copy and paste it from the exam. But we're going to start from scratch here, so that's what we're going to do. Okay. So yeah, when a student is doing this, what should be the first thing they do? And also, guys, while Yen and I are working this out, I recommend that you do try to do this ahead of time. See if you can like race us and get to the finish, because we'll be asking you questions along the way, and if you guys do it ahead of time, it'll make the session go by smoother and give you more time at the end to ask questions. So yeah, Yen and I are going to be doing it, but make sure you guys actually try to do it too. But without further ado, yeah, Yen and I are just going to do it at our own pace while you guys are working on it. Okay, so anyways, yeah, Yen, what is normally the first thing that you think a student should do when they're given a class to write?
So the first thing that you should do is identify what are the key variables. What are the instance variables that are you supposed to have in this class? So here, looking at the prompt, this is that I need height, the radius, and that seems to be about it. So go ahead and initialize your instance variables.
Okay. So I'm going to be doing a height and a radius. So I mean, their names are going to be height and radius. I'm not done yet, but yeah. So these need a type. Now, everyone in the chat, what do you think it should be? It should be pretty straightforward to you, but someone type in the chat. Okay, so I see doubles. Does anyone think it should be an integer? So how do we normally tell if it's an integer or not? And how do you think a student should be able to tell?
So in the case of to tell the difference between an int and a double, you look for decimal. In this case, you see that in the instruction it says 6.0. So a double would be the best in this case, and also we'd be using another type of method that needs decimal values. So a double in this case would be the best.
Yeah, so I also, so as Yen was saying, later down the line, we're going to get the volume of the soda can. And that involves multiplication and division. So whenever you see division, for the most part, you're probably just going to want to use doubles. Okay, so we're going to use double height, double radius. Okay, so that's fine. And then I'm going to be working on these two. So when something is at default, what do you guys think that is? So yeah, what is something that doesn't change? Like it's normally the thing that you would stick to. There's a word for it. There's a term for it in class. Okay, so yeah. So someone said final, but what is that called? The final variable. Yeah, there you go. So someone in the chat said it's a constant. So yes, we use constants when there's something that's like a default value that doesn't really change at all. So can I just say final, let's say default height. Is that a good idea, Yen, if I say it like that?
No, because then when you initialize a constant variables, you want it to be accessible to all the classes that associate with SodaCan. So if you don't say public in beginning, you cannot access to default height later on from other class. So you do need to say public, static, and you need to have a type as well, which is a double.
So if anyone's confused with that, say so in the chat, but we're gonna keep going with this.
With the name,
mm-hmm.
And also with the name, you want it to be all capitalized because that is how you initialize your constant.
Yeah, so I can say default height, like that. And is that pretty much good here? What does the chat think? What do you think, Yen?
I think it's good enough. And then you would do the same thing for the radius.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oops. Default radius equals 2.0.
And also notice how Mark initialize your instant variables. What are you missing in this case?
Oops. Believe it or not, I'm actually not sure. What am I missing?
So yes, you are missing private because for instant variables, you always want that to be the data you kept for SodaCan only.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That is, see, guys, even I forget. So don't feel bad if you do, but you should definitely just always do that automatically. It can get really easy to forget later on, but yeah, definitely don't do what I do in that case. Okay, all right. So, are we done with the variables? What does everyone think? So, what does everyone think in the chat? And Yen, what do you think?
I think in this case we are done with the instant variables, so we can move on to the next step, which is creating the constructor.
Okay. So the constructor. Okay. So I can say public SodaCan. And then, all right, I'm gonna give chat a chance to think about how the constructor should look like. This isn't necessarily done, but based on these instructions, what do you guys think is the answer to the constructor that we want? So you guys could just pretty much type it out on the chat, and then Yen and I are going to talk about it. So when a student is looking at constructors, Yan, what should be the first step?
So the first step is to skim through the construction if you need any local parameter for your constructor. So look at here. It says in the instruction that sets the current height and radius to a given height and the radius. So this means that the constructor will take in height and radius.
Yeah, so I actually like to name my variables like this, where it's called current height and current radius, because it makes more sense to me. But you guys can name it anything else that also makes sense. But I'm gonna go with this. And then let's say I wanted to, so because I can tell over here that I need to set the height and the radius, I just simply need to make two parameters here. So I can say current height and another double, which is current radius, or actually I'll say given radius. So I just want to remind people that if you have the same name over here and over here, that you can do this dot. And some students are still confused by this. You want to explain this, Yan?
So when you have the same instant variable name with a local variable name, you want to use this for the instant variable, which is on the left side, to indicate that you are using this object, this reference right now, the current one, the main one, to have the data store from current height that you take from the local variable, which is in the constructor right here. So remember, this current height, this dot current height always mean the actual object, the actual instant variable. And whatever on the right side would be your local variable.
Yeah, so for the most part, if you see that this name over here is the same as this name over here, then it's hard for the program to tell. And if I were to do this, and I just try to compile, well, it compiles right now, but it really shouldn't. Well, okay, well, it shouldn't compile. And then you would have to put in this dot to get it to work. There's probably a typo somewhere. I don't want to spend time on that though. Anyways, yeah. So I have both of them getting initialized. So does this constructor look done to everyone? Just say yes or no in the chat if you think it looks done. So Yan, how does the student know they're done?
Well, after you've notice how there's the constructor instruction, there is only one thing that you need to do, which is initialize the radius and the height. So after that instruction is done, you know that you can move on to the next step, which is creating.
Well, sorry. What if in the exam it said if the numbers are negative, then set them to a default value.
All right. So in that case, so this would be the test case that you have to watch out for. Okay, thank you for notifying me that. So in this case, you have to make sure that whenever the user or the tester enter values for the height and the radius, they always have to be greater than 0, because it wouldn't make sense to have a soda can with a negative height or a negative radius, right? So in that case, you would need if statements. So go ahead and do your if statements. And
Okay.
these if statements would have to be before you set the values. So all of this that Mark have right now that he highlight would be inside your if statements. So from what we said, it was if. So current height and current radius should not be 0. So we can do if current height greater than 0 and
I'm going to say this for now, actually.
okay. Your given height greater than 0 and given radius greater than 0. Then you would want to set the values accordingly. Notice here that we don't use the this dot whatever anymore because right now we're using different names, given height and current height. So in this case, there is no ambiguity. So you don't need to use this to specify which one is the instant variable that you point at. All right. So since I think this is good for the constructor because we also already tested with the corner case.
Well, what if
right,
they are negative?
right. Else. So if they enter a negative, you want to cache that as well. So if they enter a negative, then you would have to set the current height to the default height, which is 6.
So a student is asking, what if only one of the numbers is negative? So I'll let you answer that, Yan, while I fill this out.
If one of the number is negative, then it will still go to the else. So let's see here. So let's say they enter a negative height. Your if condition would not make sense because in order for this if to go through into the statements inside, both of the conditions have to be true. So if both of them are not true at all, it will still go to the else. If that makes sense. So if instead of I put like or instead of and, then it will still go to the if and that would break this test case. But here I have the and. So if one of them is false, if given height is negative, it will be false. It will be skipped to the else right away and set to default height. Or if I put given radius is a negative, then it will still be false and it will go to the else. So in this case, whichever number is negative, it will go to the default height and the default radius.
Okay. So everyone in the chat, do you think this looks like it's done? Is the constructor done? I'll give it about 10 seconds. So just a quick yes or no. So I have a few yeses. Do you agree with them, Yan?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, we're pretty much good because all it asks for is to set the current radius and current height to a given one. Otherwise, if they're negative or 0, then set them to a default value. Actually, yeah, good. Okay. All right. So if there's no questions, then I guess we can move on to the next step. So There will be a method that returns the current volume. Okay, sure. Let's do that real quick. So it would be public. So what would be a good name for this method, guys, if we're trying to retrieve the current volume? So it will return a double. So someone said that. Okay, and then it's going to be get volume. Sure.
Also notice how that in this instruction, we don't give you the name of each method, but in the day of the midterm, there will be a specified method names, class title, or like class name. So make sure when you create your BlueJ classes, make sure your class names match up with the name that is in the instruction, or else it won't work on code check. And at the moment, we cannot answer you. So make sure that you look for names matching. All right, because we encounter a few compile error like that in the past, and unfortunately, we cannot say the answer. So just make sure that names are the same when you run on code check.
Okay, so so now we're trying to find the volume of a soda can, which is basically a cylinder. And we need the height and the radius. And the radius is squared. So given that, how do I calculate that, guys? So Yen, what would be your approach here?
So recall the formula from the comment that Mark just put. You need pi, radius, 2, and height. So in order to create this formula, we need to get the value first. So go ahead and initialize a local variable called volume.
Just like that?
Okay, so let's speak a little louder. Sorry.
I can talk a little bit lower. That's fine too. Yeah.
Didn't bring my headphone right now. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll just speak quieter. It's easier than Yen speaking louder. So I'll just be I'll just try to be calm when I speak. All right. So yeah. So we have a double in volume right here. Well, I misspelled it, but okay.
Right.
And then, did you want it like that, Yen?
Yeah. So
Okay.
for volume, can you set equal, because now we're trying to calculate the volume.
Okay. So we're gonna try to calculate it here. So somebody in the chat is saying, is it necessary to initialize the volume? Can we just return the value itself?
Yes, we can do that in one line, but let's just show you the steps before we show you the shortcut. All right?
Yeah, so let's just do it this way first. Okay.
So for volume, you need pi. I mean, you need a pi. So recall that from previous projects, we use pi, the constant from math class. So to initialize pi, you right now you can search on math API, and you will see constant math.pi, and it is already there for you to use. So go ahead and go back to BlueJ project. So where is pi coming from? Pi is coming from the math class. So you need to indicate that math.pi. Remember.
See if that compiles.
Remember, can you just go along right now? So
okay.
pi from here, they both the letters are capitalized. So make sure the names are exactly like that. So, and then next step would be times it with the radius. So where do you get the radius? That is your constant, instant your variable. So you just do current radius.
Yeah, so somebody in the chat said current radius, so there we go.
And then the next step would be to do a power up to. So for math class, you can do math.pow current and then 2.
So it would be, well, it's been a while since I've done this actually. Okay, so.
You can do current radius times current radius. That will work too.
Yeah, yeah, that works too.
So just do this one right now and we can do the math later.
Okay. Yeah, I actually don't remember the syntax. It's pretty funny. Okay.
Times height, current height. That is one step. That is one of the way that you can calculate volume. Can you comment this and we do another way for MathPal?
Okay.
So copy and paste that and let's do another one. So let's remove current radius right now. So one of the suggestion is to have math dot pow parenthesis current radius comma 2 parentheses.
So yeah, someone in the chat already mentioned it, so I'm gonna take what they got. Wow, that is Control-Shift-I. There we go.
So that is the way to do it. And then since now that we calculate a volume, wait, can you show me the error? What is
oh no, it's because I'm not returning anything yet right here.
Yeah, so the last thing that you want right now is that you calculate the volume, you want to return it. All right. And
now it compiles.
And this will compile. Another way to do this all in one step is, can you comment double volume and copy and paste whatever on the second line after the and then it will also compile too. This way is shorter, yes, but it can be really unclear to anyone who tries to read your code. So that's why we had a long way with 2 lines. But if you want to do one way, when you don't have time, that will be okay as well. But these are the steps to getting the get volume. So for that method, I think we are done.
Mm-hmm. So the rest is actually pretty easy. So for those of you who have been working ahead, I expect you guys probably know these parts by now, but we're gonna do it anyways, just to make sure everyone knows.
Comment for get volume. So for get volume, remember MathPal returns, I think, a long, right? But
mm-hmm.
the method is returning a double. So why is it work in this case? Any suggestions? Why
okay.
is it giving me like a compiling error or something like that? Because a long is not compatible to a double. So for this one, it compiles because double is bigger than long. So whenever you have double, add, subtract, divide, or multiply another primitive type like int or long or float, it will always be a double in the end. A double value would consume the other primitive type. So it would work in this case.
So someone in the chat is asking, so to repeat what Yen said, is it okay to return like that instead of saying what the volume is and then returning volume. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Yen, do you know what that means?
So I know. So what you're asking is, can we return everything in one line instead of having double volume declare and initialize and return as volume? Yes, you can. You can either do return volume, get volume in 2 lines, double volume equal the equation, and then return volume, or you can do return map.pi times map.pow radius to.
All right. Do you want to just skip these parts, Yen, so then we can move on to the other parts and the Java docs?
Hold on a minute. Can you go back to the BJ?
Okay.
So you notice how map.pow here? Can you open map API?
Oh, okay. Right here.
Go to map.pow.
So let me search up POW.
So you noticed.
Here we go.
No, I need the return type.
Oh, okay.
Oh, never mind. So never mind. Mat.pow is actually return a double. So never mind. I thought it was returning a long, but then it would work because double and double are compatible.
I think because it changes in time with the libraries, but yeah. Either way, whether if Yen was on the same page as the API or not, in general, when you have a number like an integer, and then you can represent it into a double very easily because you're adding digits in a sense. Yeah, all you have to do is just add 0.0 to the end. So that's totally fine. It's always fine to go from smaller to bigger. It's when you go from bigger to smaller, let's say you get 2.4 and you turn it back into a 2, that's when the problems occur. So I hope that explains it to everyone. But I mean, here, let me just do another example. So if I wanted to get 1.4 and I wanted to turn it into an integer, it would have to turn into 1. That's bad. But when I wanted to turn 1 and turn it into a double, it turns into 1.0. That's easy. And that's why smaller data types tend to be compatible with bigger ones, but not the other way around. Sorry guys, I'm not sure if I can really turn it lower. Maybe I could just put my mic away like this. Is it quiet? Is it more quiet now? Okay.
Yeah. You have
all right.
Really near. It was really blasting off.
Okay, my bad. Okay, so I'll talk like this now. Okay. Yeah.
Set really quick.
The what?
Radius.
Radius? Okay. So wait. What about it?
Can you do set radius really quick?
Oh, set radius. Okay. So I'll just do that real quick. So by now I imagine everyone's probably already done it before, so I'll just do it. Radius. Double new radius. Current radius equals new. Whoops. Radius. Gosh, I keep pressing F. All right.
And a set height.
I'll just do this and then change this. Just this.
So remember when we do sets like this, new radius can be negative number, new height can be negative number. So you do want to have the test case for when that happens. So go ahead and do your if statements. If new radius is greater than 0. Then you would want to set like that.
So while I'm typing this, can the chat try to guess what this next part is going to be?
Can you do that for height as well?
Yeah, so I'll do this part for height. You know what, I'll just rewrite it, it's okay.
So remember that the radius or the height cannot be 0. So from all the things that we initialized or declared before, what are the good values that we can use here in the LC?
So whenever students are stuck, I always recommend looking at everything else over here. So we have current radius, we have current radius, current height, and we have these default values, right? So if they're 0 or below, what else can we really set them to? Yeah, so actually, yeah, someone in the chat already said it, but yeah, we just set them to default. And it's done the same way as we do in the constructor. So current radius is set to default radius. Current height is set to default height.
And notice how we have these in the actual methods to look for when this happens. So you can actually go up to the constructor. Can you go up to the constructor?
Oh, okay.
And instead of having setting like this, writing long chunks of code like this, you can actually put set height equal, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do this current height set to current height, even height. So go ahead and go up there and do that.
Yeah, so what Yen's trying to explain here is we don't have to do all this crazy business here because set radius.
No, keep it there, just comment out.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll just comment it out. I'll do it this way.
So that can actually work as well if you want a shortcut. But essentially, it would do the same thing as typing if else here. So if you want to save time, and you notice that set radius and set height are there, and you know the constructor is asking for height and radius, you can actually do this in 2 lines for the constructor. So that will save you some time.
Yeah. So pretty much what she said. Yeah. You just call the method because the method is doing the same job as the constructor. So you might as well just use them right here anyways. So you don't have to retype that code over and over. And actually, it works better than this logic over here. I don't want to get too deep into it, but let's just say doing it this way is safer, and it accounts for more cases. So yeah.
So I think that is good enough for set and set. So
okay.
Go ahead and do one Java doc for one of them.
Okay.
If you don't do the shortcuts, you do not lose points, but it will take you a lot of time, in my opinion, I think. In the lecture, she says that you can do either way, but doing this way would be more efficient in the terms of time and less likely for you to make mistakes in terms of like setting values or setting the condition. So right now, Mark is doing Java doc for the set method. So notice that the first line will always be the description. Then the next line would be indicating the parameter. So add param new radius. And if you have multiple parameters variable, then you would have the next line indicating to that parameter. If not, then you are done. Can you do one Java doc for the get volume?
Okay. So we have a question about set height in the constructor. Do you mind clarifying that for everyone? Yeah. And also mention it for the video for people who wonder what the question is.
So can you scroll up really quick? So here, so you know the purpose of set height is to set the current height to whatever height that is given by the user. So that is essentially the same thing as in the beginning, you have no value at all and initializes it with something else. Before, we have if statements to test values of given height and given radius to be greater than 0. That is also the same thing as we doing in set, see if the new values are actually 0, greater than 0.
Yeah, so pretty much whenever you call a method like this, it's equivalent to taking this code inside the method and pasting it right over it, like that. Except that you give it a parameter right here. Whoa.
So if it doesn't make sense to you, I suggest, can Mark, can you go up?
Yes.
Take a look at this code again. It's the same thing as the set and the radius and set height.
It's actually a little bit different because we try to do everything at once.
Yeah.
You should probably do it one at a time, like this one first and then this one next. But yeah.
Cool. So now we can move on to get volume. So get volume, also same thing. The first line, just description. Second line, if you have any for RAM, then you would dedicate that for FRAM, but you don't have any in this case. So the next thing for assessor method would be at return. So at return current volume.
If she asks for Java docs, it's usually for both the constructor, the class itself, well, mostly just the constructor, and then the methods. Code check will tell you if you're missing a Java doc for the most part. So you can't really make a mistake and forget about it because it'll tell you.
Yeah.
Just make sure you actually read the errors for it. And as for writing too much code, so someone asked a question, can you get points off for writing too much code? It depends on if it's bad syntax or not bad syntax, like a bad coding habit, or if it. Okay, so let's just say there's a difference between doing it a bad way and doing it a slower way. Slower doesn't mean bad, because it just might mean that it's equivalent. But if it's messy and it's like, and you're adding extra lines for absolutely no reason at all that you can totally avoid, that doesn't even make sense, then you'll lose points for that.
In my opinion, for the activity we just did just now, you can have test cases in your set method and test case in your constructor, and that will still make sense. That is not repeating. That do show that you understand the process of the code. However, in the if statements right here, instead of doing if else, you do if and else if. Let's say else if, can you go down?
I made a typo, so you said what?
Okay, instead of doing if else if, so do else if for that radius.
For this one?
Yes, do if else. Else if new radius is not equal to 0. Yeah, or like that. So in this case, if you do if and else if like this, that would mean you will lose points. Yes, your code will run and you will get the right answers. However, it does not show that you understand the process of if statements, because in this case, it's either negative. It's negative or 0. Is either negative and 0 or greater than 0. So you only have two options in this case. So if else would be the most the best approach, and probably the best answer in this case. But if you do if else if, it will run, it will get the correct answer, but it does not show that you understand the process of if statement. So in this case, this is not too much code, but you will lose points.
Okay. So I think we're ready to move on to the next part, right?
So I think the get height and the get radius is pretty straightforward. To be on time, we're just gonna move to the next activity, which is tracing. So if that is good, we're just gonna move to tracing as now, because it's something so new to you guys, but essentially it's the same thing as the way that we've been doing in class.
Okay.
So here we have a snippet of code that we would like you to read each line. So like int a equal number / 4, line 1, right? So here, notice how we have A, B, C, D, E, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what you would do when you said line 1 is to find the value of A. So what is the value of A in this case? So let's go through it together. So
first we need to pick a number.
Right. So let's say the number, can you comment somewhere? Let's say the number is 20.
Is what?
20.
20? Okay, let's go with 20.
Let's do 21.
21, okay, great.
All right. So 21 is your number. What is 21 divided by 4?
So chat. All right, so I see a 5. Does anyone else have anything?
So in this case, A is 5.
Yes.
So why is it 5? Why is it not 5 point something? Well, remember, we're returning an int value. So instead of being 5.25, they will truncate down. So that would be a 5, right? So you do not have to put 5 for every line, just only the actual box. So you don't one box for each line, right?
Yeah, so
question. Yeah. So the next line is asking for a double B. So that means 8 times 19. A right here is 5. What's 5 times 19?
I'm just too lazy to do it in my head. Maybe we should just get the students to use the calculator, yeah? Okay.
So right now, B is 95. So go ahead and do that.
Yeah, 95 goes here. So a lot of students tend to go in autopilot mode and write 95 right here because it's the next step. But remember, it's under A. So A is still 5. So you leave it like that.
You can definitely do 5 down below like this for A, but you don't have to. Yeah. You can technically do that, but to save time, you don't have to write 5 until line 6.
Yeah.
You can just do one number per line.
Yeah. So if you want to save time, you could just write 5 one time and only write again when it actually changes, right? She will assume that you have all the rest of this filled out with 5. If you're like me and you just can't really look at it the same way, and if you absolutely have to do it that way and it makes more sense for you that way, and it's less prone to error, then by all means you can do it that way. It's your call if you really wanted to do it with speed or with carefulness.
All right. So let's move on to C. So remember that B was a double. So in this case, you have to cast, or else it will give you a compiler error of incompatible type. So B, if you truncate B from a double value to an int, it was 95.5. So now truncate, it will still give you 95 because there is nothing after the dot decimal point, right? So 95 mod 6. What is 95 mod 6? Remember, mod is mod is getting the remainder. So that would give you a 3. Oh, that's a 5.
Apparently.
Oh shoot.
Okay. So here's a question, guys. Is it 5 or is it 5.0?
Okay, yeah, it's 5. So here, 6 times. So let's say, how do you get remainder, right? So the way to think about this is the opposite of division. So instead of getting actual answer, you're getting what is left over. So if you take 95 and you divide by 6, you get 15. Take that 15 times 6, you get 90. And you take 90 and you
subtract it.
Yeah, so that you take 95, you minus 90, then you get your 5. So essentially, you get the opposite of division.
Also, notice how I don't say 5.0, I say 5. I understand that that it was a double at first. Like B was a double, but we cast it into an integer. And also, we claim C as an integer. So I'm going to label B as 5 instead of 5.0. If I had labeled it like this, like if it was a double, then of course, for sure, it should be 5.0. So watch out when she's listing types, like that. Okay, so I'm just gonna do these next 2 parts. Okay.
Let's move on to the next one, which is D. So D is equal to B minus A over C. So B right now is a 95, which is a double. Double minus A, which is 5. So that would give you, so also follow the operation, the order of operation. So here we have to do division first. So what is A divided by C? So you know that from the chart, A is 5 and C is also 5. So that would give you a 0.
Right? Don't you mean 1?
0.
5 divided by 5?
Oh, 5 divided by 5.
It's okay. It's okay.
So 5 divided by 5 is 1. And you have B, which is a double, minus 1.
All right, guys. So what's 95.0 minus 5? I mean minus 1. Oh my gosh. Wow.
This would actually
These are your SI leaders, guys.
This will give you compiler error because the return type is an int and you have a double value in here. So what you should do is you should cast the whole thing right here.
Actually, let me double check. So let's say 95.0 minus 5.
No, you have to have it set to D.
Oh, wait. Okay. Int D equals 95.0 minus 5. Whoops. Okay. Now let's try. Yeah. Yeah. So there is incompatible types.
So instead, you have to cast it. So you didn't cast it here. So go ahead and cast the B.
So it would be over the entire thing. And I'd say int right there.
Now it would give you a 94, a well-round 94.
So that would be a 94. And because it's an integer, it's not 94.0, it's just 94.
Right. So let's move on to E.
All right.
Wait, 94 is line 4.
Oh, wait. Okay, my bad. There we go.
So let's move on to E. So D divided by 1,000. So what is the value of D? So D is 94. 94 is an int, so it would divide an int. Because 94 is way smaller than 1,000, it will give you, yes, a 0. So let's move on to line 6. So right here, we're not creating another value. We're just updating E, right? So D over 1,000 double. So this would actually give you a compiler error again, because E is your int. So you have to cast it. So again, it was just gonna give you a 0, because 0 divided by 0, I mean 1,000 is a 0. So this is, for this tracing exercise, is something that we made up. So we, in the beginning, we didn't thought about casting yet. So no, you don't have to fix the code, but you do need to know what is the expected values for each column and a row.
If there's any ambiguity like this, like you notice that it wouldn't compile, you should talk to her right away. Like that should be the first thing you do. Like you either tell us or tell her on the midterm, so you absolutely clear out any confusion.
All right. So if you guys, so I hope that this is straightforward. Now we're gonna move on to the tips and tricks. So again, this test is open book. You can literally bring your book if you want to, but I don't think that you would have the time to look at your book. So if you had a book come in handy in your laptop already, or any other homework that you already did on your home in your laptop, that would be fair game, because that is your work. You will be able to access to that. You can even bring a notebook to calculate whatever right answer. It will be okay too. But the only thing that you cannot do is using. So we know that you have to use internet to go to campus, right? And to upload your files. That is okay. but you cannot go on internet to, go to Facebook and your complete code to your friend, or looking for how to create a constructor, right? Do be aware that we are going to be around to check if you're doing anything else. So please don't make those mistakes. Be honest with your work. So you can always go to internet and submit whatever when you're done. You had a time slot, but always make sure that you check all your work. You have to upload all 5 answers. So 4 coding questions and 1 RTF, which is for the tracing. Upload all of those at once, just like how you did with your homework. And also, the day before of the midterm, which is a Monday, the professor will upload a zip file to the midterm. That will be a zip file, so remember to extract. If you don't extract, you don't get the complete format of the questions, and you will lose, like some test case that you didn't even know that you have. That is bad. And also, I had some incident in the past. A student didn't extract it. So in the middle of the section, when in the middle of the midterm, they did a graphic question, they couldn't see the picture. So they extract the whole thing again, and all the code that they have been done are erased. So you don't want that. So make sure that you extract everything before you start coding. And there will be topics, everything up until now. So please review your graphics package, how to get the predefined method, colors, how to set a color. Do you know how to create a circle with a given radius or given center? Do you know how to use substring? Do you know how to use index of, get line, or to lowercase? What's the use? And for scanner classes, what's the first thing that you need to do? Import, right? And then create a scanner object asking for the from, and then you would take in the data, which can be like a string, int, or double. So remember that. And of course, you have to review your if statements when it's necessary to use if, or if else, if else. So, in the zip file, there will be 5 questions. A few of them will have, most of them will have like a starter code for you, just the outline, and that will be all. And to get a tester code, you go to the HDMI and you go to code check. Some of them will have the tester method there already for you. And I would suggest, instead of waiting for code check to run your code to see if it is correct, copy and paste the actual tester from code check and create another class in BlueJ. So you can test your code concurrently from BlueJ. And once you see that all your code is correct, then upload to code check, submit, and get that zip file that you need. And that is for that. And also, if you haven't set numbers on the left margin already for your BlueJ classes, you should do that. So, so that when you have an error, syntax error or whatever, you can see what line is having error or which class. So you can go directly to that one. So for Mac, I would think that you have to go to preference, which is like clicking the Apple symbol, go to system, the preference, and then, Blue Jay. You go to preference and you click on, and it will be under editor, display line numbers. I'm not sure what it is for Windows, but it will always be from preference to editor and display numbers. So that's for that. And if you want more tips on how to look for errors, the professor has pages for that. So you would go to syllabus and you go up here, you go for text style errors and down. So here you will see that. So right here, these are the type of error that can be go through with the Java doc. And can you go up a little bit? Can you go up a little bit?
Up a little bit? This is the...
So right here, error message. That is happened at Java 1. So that 1 is the line number that is giving you error. And from what class? Piggy bank. So that's how you look for Java doc, error. Also with like compile error as well. Make sure you go to that class, looking at that line, what is the error? Fix it at that moment. So that is for error. And can you go back to the syllabus? And go down to key shortcut. No, not that down. Go up a little bit. So Blue Jay keyboard. Click on that one. So this is like a list, but not exhausted, but it will give you some shortcut. So here it will show you how to auto format, which is for Mac, Command Shift I for Windows, Control Shift I. To compile, Command K, Control K. And to copy and paste is Control C and then Control V, so something like that. All right.
I think the most important one, well, other than Control C and Control V, is this one right here.
Yeah, Control Shift I, which is
Just,
auto format.
Yes.
And then for you too. So go ahead. Can you do this one? So as for that, you can definitely reuse the code from midterm. And what you can do is, if you don't remember the process of making scanner, I suggest you to have a format ready. So by the time that you actually encounter a problem like that, you had a format ready for you. So first thing first, import. In the class, for the main method, create a new object scanner. Next thing, prompt. Next thing, sort from to some data. So that is your format. All right. And also, please, if you did all 5 problems, even if they're not done, submit all 5. There might be some lines in your code that indicate that you understand this concept or whatever that is asking. You might get partial credit if the logic is there. Please send everything and do so before the time runs out. That is all the tips I have. Or do you have any?
Yeah. So something I like to do before every midterm, when I was in our professor's class, is I always make notes for midterm class. It sounds like a weird name, but essentially, I would create a class and I would just call it, I don't know, like notes for midterm, right? And I would literally, in here, I would put in public static void main string args, and I would write down all the code I would want to copy and paste because it's something I do a lot. This is especially useful if you want to do like things like graphics package. You're like, what's the formula I did again? Or like classes or like examples of constructors and whatnot. I would just write all of it down and put a comment saying like example of drawing a circle. And then that way later on, when I'm looking for something, I could just press Control F and search it up, and it would bring me to wherever it is. And that way I could just copy and paste it just like that. So I can have a template to work from. I mean, obviously you don't know what's going to be on the midterm, but you can definitely tell what type of coding patterns you use a lot, and then you could just look at that, and then you could just build off of that. It saves time, for me at least. It doesn't work for everyone, but you can at least try it if you think that sounds like you. So that would be everything I have actually. So
yeah.
Normally we do Q&A, but we've run out of time. I still have a session at Monday, so for those of you who still have questions and you can attend Monday, then show up, and then we'll work it out from there.
So Mark, will the links be available? The slides will be available?
I mean, I don't really see any harm in it, so.
So we will make it accessible. Also, Mark will try to upload this video as soon as possible.
I'll try to upload it tomorrow.
So you will be able to go back and view these reviews. I suggest that you practice the tracing, just maybe addition or something like that. Because it is something that we don't really explicitly did in class, but you do that a lot with your code, but it will be a great practice. Because for me, tracing was the fastest out of our questions. It doesn't take that much time if you know what is going on behind the code. And then also when you start your code, set a timer for yourself for each question. So I know that you have an hour and 10 minutes. So maybe set like a 14 or 13 minutes for each question. And go ahead and skim through all the questions beforehand to see, oh, I know this one. I'll go back later. I'll do it. Start with the easiest one. Doesn't have to be in order. Okay? Set a timer because sometimes you might be finish this question before the other one. And you can always go back. Don't stuck on just one question. That would just be more harmful to you. If you don't get it, move on to the next question after that time. And maybe on the way the ID come back to you and you remember, and there you go. You know how to do it. Yeah. So just don't spend too much time on one question.
Okay. So is that everything?
Yeah, I think that's everything. This is second to last. So if you still want more practice, go to our section on Monday from 4 to 5, I recall.
Yeah, it's gonna be 4 to 5:30 actually.
Okay, 4 to 5:30. All right.
Yeah, the details will be on Piazza. I'll probably upload an announcement for it the same time I upload the video. So watch out for that over the weekend. I'll try to get it out tomorrow.
It's been great. Thank you, y'all, and have fun.
Oh my gosh.
This weekend. All right. That is all. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time for virtual SI meeting.
All right. I will be ending the meeting because everyone's already filled out the attendance. All right. Have a good weekend.